I was playing with a guy here in town called Guitar Kimber and the Untouchables. So man, we were playing. We back then going to New York, all up and down the road playing, the college circuit. 1963, I was went down to the El Rocco Club. Solomon Burke was coming to town.
I'm so happy to be here tonight.
The bass player came to me. He said, "Roy, I'm having a hard time trying to learn Solomon's music." He said, "Do you know how the songs go?" I said, "Oh yeah, I know everything Solomon Burke recorded. I learned all that stuff, man." He said, "Well, show me how to play it." So I started showing him how to play, and then Solomon looked around at me, and Solomon said, "Do you know how to play all my stuff like that?" I said, "Yeah, I can play it all." He said, "Well, what are you doing tonight?"
I was in the marching band. I was a music major. I put together a little trio to back up all the people that was on the talent show. Sounded great. People said, "Man, you guys are the basis for a great band." And we were playing all the cover music. So I said, you're right. So I went back to the band and started looking at all the musicians that were in the band with me, who were music majors, and that henceforth, the Mighty Majors came out of that. They wrote an article of me as a guy coming to A&T who had been a side man for all these big name acts and blah, blah, blah. Walter Grady, he came over to A&T after he saw the ad and started talking to me and said he was a songwriter. Well, at the time, he was the bellsman, carry your bags up to the hotel at the Hilton uptown.
It was the luxury hotel in the area. My dad, did a lot of odds and end jobs, but there is not a time I can remember where he wasn't writing songs, producing music, rehearsing groups, and, managing bands.
I would take his lyrics and take the essence of it and put it to music. I wrote about 15 or 16 songs, and with him as the word genius.
Let me be the one to hold you tight.
We went up to New York, and I got a record deal. We signed with the Atlantic Record Company since I was 17 at the time. Mr. Grady was in his 30s. I let him have copies of the music to give to Jerry Wexler, who was the president of Atlantic at the time. And I signed the contract, which I shouldn't have because I was only 17 years old.
Every year, my dad was looking for the next hit. He was always striving to be the next Berry Gordy, Gamble & Huff, and all those cats that, really changed the landscape.
And so we signed, and it was not a good look.
I was so skinny, it was unreal. Thus where I got my name Slack. I was such a clown. When I was at EAL, you look at these shows like, I was a regular Bonnie Fife. Man, I was quick, fast, and creative, and could put it together. Please be kind, be cool, be careful, and buy everything you can with money. See around like a amoeba. Now, wait a minute. I can't take credit for all this, because some of this stuff came from one of the greatest ever did it, Prince Ike. He was in WEAL, and boy, he could sit there and rattle it off. Now, Sam Tate and I, my other Apollo twin, we didn't do a lot of that, the Apollo twins. He would be in one studio, I would be in the other. We'd be looking through the glass, and we would take off.
Slack was the kind of person you wanted to be around. He had that party thing about it.
My dad probably sought him out. They had to run into each other because your radio DJs at that time were your MCs for your nightclub shows and for your concerts.
I started doing a little MCing at the clubs. Somebody was asking me, said, if you had your rathers, say, who are some of the people that you didn't want to bring on stage? One was Moms Mabley.
Moms Mabley! Hello, darling!
And Moms Mabley is a walking history book. But boy, once you bring her on stage and go, Moms Mabley, she says, wait.
Come here, darling.
Tell that little skinny boy to come back out there.
I own you.
Everybody in the Coliseum would just laugh. I was so embarrassed.
14-year-old guy playing in the nightclub. Somebody called me up and said, my first professional show, they said, we need somebody to go to Asheville. This was 1968. We're playing a show with Archie Bell and the Drells. I'll never forget, had to walk up the steps way up in the club, and then had to carry all my drums, because in those days you had to carry your own equipment and everything. So really you were pretty much getting paid for carrying your own equipment and playing for free. But we always got paid though, I can't complain. And so Grady was putting a group together, Gin and the Gents. And that was Virginia Massey, Robert Evans was singing lead, Anthony Quick and Nathaniel Herring, C.C. Stewart. Grady came to town. He found out about them, and so we started recording their songs like Boy and Girl, which is the Teenage National Anthem.
It was like a Gladys Knight the Pips type deal.
And we need you to come over and we practice. So we go over on Old Market Street next to Boss Webster's down there. That's where Grady had his office. Costuming,
Choreography, the whole deal, all went on there.
And that was upstairs too, so we had to carry stuff upstairs.
With Solomon, we had been on the tour with the Isley Brothers and Jimi Hendrix for almost a year, and I had the experience to play with so many entertainers. Stevie Wonder and Eddie Floyd, William Bell, Otis Redding, and so all the entertainers that would come through that didn't have their own band, we had to back them. Otis had came through here about 7-8 months before the plane crash. And he was up on Gall Street. They had this old, big old building that was like the black motel of Greensboro for all the entertainers to stay back in those days. So I was coming down the street, and Otis and his band, they were sitting out in the front, and I pulled over and talked to him for a little while, and he said, wanted me to go with him. I said, no, I got a gig now. I'm working with Eddie Floyd. Oh, Eddie, you working with him? I said, yeah, I'm working with Eddie now. So he said, well, anytime you ever need a gig, you call me and you got it. And then about 7-8 months later is when that plane went down. A buddy of mine named Curtis Moore owned a record shop here in town.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we'd like to present to you a new and exciting young comedian and poet all rolled into one. Let's hear it for the one and only Kurt Moore.
Well, I sat down and we wrote The Legend of Otis Redding. When time come to cut the song, we got everybody in the studio, good musicians. Station's #1 drummer, Danny Richmond, had Little Charles on bass, Billy played the Hammond organ. He was really dynamite, and he had a couple of records himself. I'm on guitar. We had this other guy that was supposed to sing it. His name was Johnny Dunn from New York. We ready to cut the song, but Johnny Dunn didn't show up. So Kirk's done paid all this money and got to pay everybody and all of that, and he looked around, he said, man, somebody got to sing this song. And he looked at me, I said, Kirk, I'm no singer. He said, you're going to be a singer today, because I ain't going to waste all my money. We're going to get some kind of a song out of this joint.
About an old friend of mine.
On the flip side of that, a tune called Got to Have Your Love. Put it out, and the song started getting hot. He sold the masters to Nina Simone and Andy Stroud, her husband. I'm looking around, hey, did I do that? I might be on to something here, Oh man, yeah, we got a lot of radio play. Back then, it was kind of like the old movie, Coal Miner's Daughter, when you get out and get in your ride and running all over the state and everything, looking for radio antennas and, to go in and talk to the DJ and get them to play your record.
We opened shows for everybody that was anybody. We wound up playing behind Gladys Knight and the Pips, Aretha Franklin, Garnett Mims, Percy Sledge, Joe Tex, James Brown. We were making thousands of dollars playing on the road with some of these people. When I was with Irma Franklin as our band leader, That's Aretha's sister. We were on our way to Pensacola, Florida. We coming down in the back roads. Her husband is the cockiest son of a bitch on the planet. Michael said, I'm hungry. We need to stop and get something to eat. I said, we only 25 miles from Pensacola. Let's wait till we get to Pensacola. I'll stop wherever I want to, blah, 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 blah. New York guy. When we pull up, there were 4 or 5 Elvis Presleys sitting on these barrels out front, and one of them said, we don't serve niggas here. Of course, Michael, being from New York, says, well, that's good, we don't eat them. And I'm going like, oh, shit. I went to the van, and I told the guys, I said, crank it up. When the van pulled out, some guys came out of the restaurant and jumped into these hot rods. We're doing 90 miles an hour on a 2-lane road. And these guys came up to us, bumped the back of the Cadillac. One of them pulled up beside us, pulled out a gun, and just aimed it. Michael said, don't worry about it, hand me my bag. I didn't know what he had in that bag. He pulled out one of the oldest, I don't know what it was, but the barrel on it was that long. He stuck his arm out the window and squeezed off 3 shots. The guy lost the control of the car behind us and went off the road, and all we saw was dust, smoke, and corn flying.
It was real messed up back then. I come from Kentucky. The white restaurant down there, we could walk in there and sit down, we could eat, we could do whatever we wanted to do. Mixed schools, 1956, 57, the schools were mixed down there. Black and white going together. We're out in Mississippi, and everybody hungry and pull up to this restaurant to get something to eat. We start up to the door, and this little black lady come running through up to the front door looking like Aunt Jemima or some damn body. She said, no, y'all can't come through here. You got to go around the back. We go around the back. They got a little hole cut through the wall, and it was so black and greasy, or blacker than this equipment here, about this wide and about like that. And you holler through the hole and tell them what you want, and they stick the food out the hole. I said, no, I'll starve before I eat.
But when I entered the A&T scene, was the year that Martin Luther King had been assassinated. I was at a speakeasy when somebody came in and said, they've killed our leader. They've killed Martin Luther King. And I heard someone else said, let's go. And, you know, bottles were being thrown into windows and rocks. And
when Dr. Martin Luther King was killed, my band was the band that was supposed to have been playing for the dance of the garbage workers' strike at the rally. Who were with Gene Chandler, backing him up.
The year that the National Guard moved on A&T's campus, a lot of rioting that was done, cars passing by, rocks would be thrown, Molotov cocktail, homemade. Tanks came across the campus yard heading toward the campus, and we saw that. I could smell. We had to plug up the air conditioners. I could smell, and I will never forget the smell of tear gas. And the next day, I understood when the news came out that they had shot up one of the dormitories there. That made it personal for me. That made it very personal.